up in
When
the summer.
you
Bring home and see it when the sun's behind it.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Could I just ask a question, and I don't know that there's an answer, but I don't have any property maps or any ownership records, but I would guess there might be 50% of the ownership that might be looked at as a natural forested land.
I have no idea.
And the owners would not necessarily be living anywhere close to here. I'm just wondering if any record has been looked at to say how many people are really affected by this one ordinance. My first hunch is that 50% of the vacant land or more would be in violation of that ordinance. And does it really affect me to go west of Elm, where there are no roads,
Or the look of the
and
town.
it's totally forested, and it isn't platted into lots that you can see or get to? It doesn't bother me
Private
one bit.
property.
So I would want the board, she said you have to apply your jurisdiction evenly. I'd be saying, no, I want to let them go. There's no other use for it, so why not let it return to natural forested land? There's no other use for it. If somebody were to build a house, then that's
Then they'd have to
gonna
clean it up.
then they're gonna clean it. It doesn't bother me as a resident at all. Now, if I was living next door to someone other than Max, and that grass on the adjacent property wasn't mowed at least to 8 inches, I'd be filing I'd say I'd like to have that handled. So I would be using an unequal evaluation system for who it is and where it is and what its purpose is. The vacant land has no purpose.
Which is one of the things the attorney said we should not do.
I know it.
So,
She said you should apply it. You should
Universally.
apply
Yeah.
evenly.
Yeah. Actually,
I wouldn't apply evenly.
what Sue is raising is something that would qualify as an exception if you wanted to have that exception. I will tell you that in some of the towns, the use of the term fields has been used with the board identifying that forested land as fields. This board raised some concerns, didn't want to have the term fields, so we're in the process of removing it.
But I don't recall the discussion about fields saying anything about forested areas.
I don't know how
It wasn't
far
when I
you
was
guys
on the board. I've only been
discussed it.
here
I don't know how far
a
you
year and a half.
discussed it, but if you want to have an exception, the exception should be written into the ordinance. And if you agree with Sue, you know your community better than I do. If you agree with Sue that natural forested growth on vacant lands should be accepted, then that's an amendment you would want to propose. I'll be honest, I think it's a viable, if you in fact have that kind of land, then I think it's a viable exception. I would recommend, however, that you can't just do it off the top of your head. It's got to be written, it's got to be posted, I would recommend that if you do want to consider an exception of that nature, and if at the same time, if you agree with the exceptions that we already have written, that you go ahead and pass the exceptions we have written, and then say, you want another amendment written for another exception we've identified as appropriate for our community.
And why would we want to wait and just get it all fixed at the same time?
I would say you'd want to get it as up to date as you can, and those folks that have requested paying exceptions and such, and raising exceptions, that part of the issue could be brought to a close. That is up to the board. I'm just making a recommendation.
And could I have a point of clarification on that?
Okay, let's say, because I do have 17, 18 acres over there, which I graze and I pasture and I hay as well. So I'm going to maintain it. Like maybe tonight I'll be out brush cutting the weeds that are back in there, but I'm not going to weed eat the fence rows. I'm not going to do, I mean, so somewhere on the property there could be 8-inch growth somewhere.
Graze something on that. I've never seen a cow that didn't think the grass was greener on the other side.
I don't have cows, I have horses, but they also feel that way. But so how does that pertain to that? I mean, if you're saying if it's weeds, brush, or grass, not to exceed. So I'm running my brush cutter down the fence and mowing the pasture, but trust me, if I get the pasture mowed, I'm not going to go get some kind of a weed eater and weed eat down the fences. So, and I can't trust my horses to eat the other side of it. So, I mean, and I'm not on the street. I'm back in the woods. You're going to have to trespass on my property.
Well, where that falls in terms of practical application is in the monthly operation of the board, as it identifies the priorities of the things that it wants addressed. And I have yet to see anyone who wanted to enforce a specific height, although if a house, as was mentioned, if a house was letting it grow up way over 8 and 12, and 8 is an arbitrary number that different towns opt for different amounts, but I have yet to see it used for any purpose other than to say, you are so far above what is allowed that it's time we have to talk to you. You have to have some standard. Whether that standard should be 8 inches or not is up to you. But there has to be some standard.
And maybe if Lucille, as long as we're looking at changes to that or amending or updating that, where it's talking about here and it talks about the right-of-way of a ditch adjacent to it, the height. So in other words, if my property front that is on the road here, that you're going to see if you drive down the road, if it's mowed and so forth, but otherwise a ditch, maybe I can't get in the ditch. I mean, you've outlined some different places where this 8 inches could be in violation, and I just don't see where if it's private property not affecting the community, it's not anywhere where it's publicly seen how that should, someone should be able to actually do something on a ditch adjacent to it, or...
Well, it seems to me that you're talking about the same basic exception if you're talking about naturally forested areas,
But they're naturally forested areas that are within the town limits.
I understand that, but I'm just saying. Well, you're still talking about within the town limits.
I'm talking about my property, and I am at this point, although Beth says it's not against the law to get myself annexed if I can possibly do that from the city limits. I'm talking about my pasture, my raw land over there that really doesn't apply to the city. There's no, the city doesn't get any benefit from it except for what I pay in taxes.
But what I'm saying, when we define a forested lot, like the ones we've described that don't have streets, don't have roads, there are forested lots that have streets that go by them. And I don't know, are those a hazard to us?
I didn't think you were talking about defining it as not having streets or lots. I thought you were just talking about, I want to make sure I understand what you want before you get done, if you want something. I thought you were talking about empty,
But we're talking
lots
about,
natural
should we be
forests.
talking
And I
about
think you were saying,
both forested lots that have streets and forested lots that do not? That's what she was bringing up. She was bringing up the ones that are out there where nobody sees them. What's the big deal of 8 inches? But I have to say the same thing about forested lots where they do have streets.
well, and I thought the discussion was vacant lots that are naturally forested. I didn't hear any exception, any difference as to whether there were streets that ran through them.
Well, we're bringing up both.
It's
We're
up
trying
to
to bring
you
up both.
to that, if you want me to work.
How
on
do you
it, it's
define
up to you.
vacant?
Well, what about, let's talk about specific in town. What about the property that Pat Hightree just bought over there? There is a road that runs down, you're talking about, that's...
She's saying all that's included as
that would be included,
Well,
so...
I'm saying that's what I understand.
So far,
you
that's
to
how
be
we
saying
define
so
it.
far.
That's what we've said. And so the question to us is, do we want to, I know, I asked you what vacant means, because they're not vacant, they have trees on them. Do you mean that they don't have a building on them? What does
Yeah.
vacant mean, I guess?
Vacant means that there are no improvements on the property.
But you're basically talking about your ditch has got weeds that are taller than 8 inches.
Well, we're talking about the whole thing.
Anything, that pasture.
We're talking about, I mean, I can name what we're talking about, you know. Well, we're talking about east of my house, between the highway
Yeah.
and me, that's one, you know.
Why do
Robin's
we need
got
that
some,
mowed?
and
Why do we
DeLarber's
need
got
that 8
some,
inches?
and Mary Ann's got some, I mean, a lot of
The
people.
fact is, it's healthy for the ground to have forest on it. It's healthy to have tall grass on it.
Well, not only that, I spent thousands of dollars to clear out a spot over here. I did it because I'm improving it and pasturing it. But if you didn't have any reason to, why would you bring a track hoe in for a week and spend thousands of dollars to clean up some raw land? If that's what it is, in fact, it's not offensive to me. I think you need to.
Go ahead and pass this as it is, and then make an amendment.
The reason she recommended that was so that the people who want to hold it for hanging are no longer in violation. If you send it back now, then they're still in violation of the ordinance. If you pass this portion of the ordinance now stating that pasturing, haying is an exception, then that removes that issue, and then you bring it back to discuss the flow of the
I might just comment that one of the great misunderstandings that people often have is that that you can get to the point where you're done. If you've ever worked with the state legislature, with any city council, with any town council, you are never really done. You put together your best package to begin to operate with it, and then as issues are raised, if they're valid, in your opinion, if they're valid, then you address those. While it's time consuming, and I know people don't always like time consuming, you know, but the process of citizen input, identifying areas that can improve it, is a good process. That's why we have a representative government, is so that people can raise these issues. And you can't please everybody, and you can't do everything everybody wants. But if in your best judgment, the issue that's raised is a valid issue, then you address that issue, you know, when it's raised. But you don't say, until we have finished every last thing, we will do nothing.
And that's where we're at right now.
That's right.
But
But it's up to you guys whether if you want this taken back to be worked on some more before you act on it, that can certainly be done. But as
We don't have to know what we want done before you can work on it.
And I don't think the problem, you know, east of your house is a problem, you know, I mean, in the place over there, I mean,
but it's currently in violation.
currently it is,
And it would
yes.
still be in violation
Correct.
even with this amended.
correct,
Okay.
so that's why you
But I think it's
add
pretty.
another exception if you want.
I love driving past
So what constitutes it being okay for this one and that one and not everyone?
Yeah, I mean, how do you differentiate?
You mean that it's forested?
Yeah, like you just say, I mean, forested.
Well, once again, you guys have to determine what it is you want. I'm not here to tell you what you need to do or have to do.
Right.
Only, but if you tell me you want to do something that it's my understanding is illegal, I'll tell you so.
What I
And maybe you
understood,
might have to have to verify, but if what you're describing is forested land on vacant lots, that's not very hard to understand. You're not saying if it doesn't have streets or does have streets, you're not saying any of that. You're just saying if it's a vacant lot and it's naturally forested, it would be an exception. That's not that hard. But it also shouldn't be done casually. It should be done carefully.
So the lot that is south of the corner there where you're going to Pat's, that empty lot that sits there, had a trailer on it, it's all grown up, I mean, is, yeah, well, yeah, is that, I mean,
Except
is
it's got a
that,
trailer in it.
It has a trailer in
in
it,
it.
it's not a vacant lot.
But it doesn't now.
It doesn't have a trailer now.
Oh, they took it out?
There's 6, it's been gone for some time. There might be a little shed back there, but the trailer's not there anymore. And there's actually six there. That's been there, it's been gone.
But then it's not a big.
It's been gone a long time.
A long time.
I drove it past there last
So I mean, are we, is that
A
gonna be
trailer,
considered
like
a
a little
vacant
trailer, not
lot?
the
or
big
is
Well,
thing
it's
that
not
they lived
forested.
in though.
It's not forested.
Correct.
But that's my question. I'm just, I want, what you're saying,
Yeah, it's not
silly
forested,
use.
that's,
Yeah.
that's true.
So in the end, if you choose to proceed with that, in the end, you would have 3 exceptions. You'd have vacant land used for hay, you'd have pastures used for grazing livestock, and you would have naturally forested land.
Yeah.
Those would be your exceptions, if you
And
choose to
highway
proceed
easements.
with that. And pardon me?
Highway easements.
Which is,
Well, highway
Which is a
easements
state.
aren't really an exception, they're just the state takes care of them. So,
It just says
yeah.
this requirement shall be accepted,
Right.
so it sounds like an exception.
I'm okay with
But it's
that,
an
I mean,
overall
yeah.
statement.
I think
Has anybody brought to the board, I mean, of course, there's exceptions, but has anybody complained about these exceptions? They are in violation, but are they,
I don't think
So-
people know whether they're in violation or not.
So I
until we
object
start
to-
enfor- excuse
I
me,
object to-
Until
Go
we
ahead.
start enforcing, if we enforce, or however we choose to enforce. Then people are going to be broadly aware. I mean, we've talked about having a public meeting and having people, a special meeting where people can come and we can go through and talk about these. So we're trying to do what we can to inform them. We've got ordinances available if people want them. But, so I haven't had a lot of complaints, but now Mary Ann apparently has one, but I interrupted her.
No, I'm sorry, I was interrupting you. I apologize for that. No, I just don't know that I even see the need for that section 5 to even be in there. Like you're saying, if it's forested area, it's whatever. It's like, I really don't feel like, back behind, has anybody seen my property back there lately?
Well, but if
I mean,
it's
you don't go
forested,
there?
then it's gonna be it's gonna be exempted.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. I don't
But
think,
like I was saying, the lot, like if you go past Don Hoyle's going this way and go around the corner down there where Pat High Tree bought,
Right.
that lot that's on the south side, it's not forested.
Right.
And the brush and the debris, or the grass is, this high. That's why I think we need to keep the 8-inch thing and keep this part in there. It's for lots like that aren't forested, that are grown up.
I don't see,
The Joyce's lot on the corner. We are thankful that Jeremy Hunter is taking it upon himself to keep that mode.
It's low, but it's just grass.
Well, and the same with Kinnison mowing, Maderas is up here.
Correct, yes, correct. I mean, but,
So
it's not,
we're probably at the point where the board needs to decide whether what is currently here, currently here in this proposal, is a proposal you want to pass, or whether you want to delay it. If you want to pass it, there is many reasons, to delay passing this portion. And then, once you decide that, then I need instruction for what you would like written for any other exception.
my personal opinion is to keep it the way keep it like it is with these amendments that we have before us today, and also add the exemption of forested areas.
Forested land on vacant
Land
lots.
on vacant lots.
That's what she was saying before.
Yeah.
Is that what we
Yeah,
want?
yes. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, my question though is whether you want to go ahead and pass this, what's before you today, or whether you want to wait another month and then deal with the third exception.
I think we can pass it that way. I don't think anybody's gonna change their mind about it.
well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said I think we should go ahead and pass it that way, because
The way that it
it's
is now.
pretty
The way
laid
it
out
is
for
now.
me.
Because we're not going to change our mind about it? Is that what you said? Because you're not going to change your mind about it?
No, she didn't say that.
You can add the forested vacant lots
Yes.
to it tonight.
Right, making an amendment.
So,
But passing it in the spirit it was written, for why it was written, not, with the
And then have an
forested
amendment saying
lands
the
and things like
forested
that are surrounding